This is the big news, the news the SEC has been debating for about the last 4 years. We finally got resolution. They're going to go from 8 league games to 9 starting in 2026. For purposes of context, the Big 12, which of course has morphed in size over the years, went to 9 games in 2011. The Big 10, of course, the league they're most often compared to, has been bragging about playing 9 games since 2016. There are so many ripple effects of this. There's a lot of information on the screen, but I would point you to the one thing at the bottom, which if you're a fan, an alum, or a player in an SEC school, in a 2-year span, you will play everyone. In a 4-year span, as a student or as a player throughout your college tenure, you'll play everyone home and away. So many interesting things to get into. Let's start with our college football playoff insider, because I know there's some tentacles here that affect the playoff. We can get to that later. But Heather, I know your phone's probably been blowing up here. So many ways to go. Your biggest thought now that the SEC has made the move to 9 games starting next year?
This is a huge win for college football fans. I mean, look, the SEC has had its fair share of critics when it comes to the schedule because of playing FCS opponents. But the reality is, this is the toughest lineup in college football now, not only with 9 conference games, but also the requirement to play another Power 4 opponent or Notre Dame. I mean, let that sink in for a minute. That's really difficult. So you're going to see more 3-loss SEC teams. But when you look at the big picture here, this is a historic move for the SEC. Commissioner Greg Sankey told me in July this is something they've been talking about since the Clinton administration.
Well, Heather, it's a huge advantage in recruiting within the SEC, as well. And you think about the fact that, like Zubin said, you're going to get your 3 guaranteed rivalries, but also you're going to get a chance to play every team in the SEC, whether they come to your house at home or you go to theirs. And even my time in the ACC in college, I didn't get a chance to play at every single institution. The other part, and I understand why coaches would push back on this, because when you played those 8 conference games, you at least had 1 week where you could kind of say, and kind of regroup yourself before you got into either the last rivalry game of the season or even the conference championship as you move forward into the CFP. So I think it's a win for all of us as a college football family. But ultimately, I think the other part that's somewhat of a downside is those FCS matchups that we won't see anymore. You'll see some of those teams, unfortunately, maybe dwindle because they got those opportunities to go play at Alabama or go play at Georgia or go play at Florida. And that was a big payday for them. So we might see that go away.
Very interesting. So the news was broken essentially and discussed on the Paul Feinbaum show yesterday by Greg Sankey. The comments coming one day after the playoff committee said they're really going to be taking strength of schedule into play when determining the field. And Sankey made sure he got that point across.
Some of the work by the CFP so far this year is progress. It's not a destination, but the honoring of schedule strength that's been communicated is really important for the Southeastern Conference. The non-conference competition allows for cross comparisons. Those are important. I hope everyone follows the lead that we've established for the Southeastern Conference. Plenty of people take their shots and offer their perspectives on our schedule. There's no stronger, more rigorous schedule than just playing within the SEC.
Got to give them credit. They always hit their talking points. Everyone says the exact same thing in lockstep. Harry, to you. August 20th, the CFP says, all right, we're going to change the metrics. August 21, Greg Sankey says what he does on Feinbaum. August 22, you're here to tell us it's not a coincidence.
Yeah, it does not seem like a coincidence at all. And look, Greg Sankey's North Star is to get as many teams into the playoff field as possible, whether there's 12 teams, whether it's the 5+11 model that has been discussed. We even saw the Big Ten float the idea of 24 or 28 teams. So to me, this was Greg Sankey doing the thing that he absolutely needed to do before even that got down the tracks and said, hey, all right, we are going to go to 9, because even as Lane Kiffin said, we had it at the top of the show, he said, hey, I don't think any other conference would trade their 9 for our 8. So now the fact that you do have a 9-game schedule, you do have the fact that you have to add a Power 4 or Notre Dame opponent as well in your non-conference, the SEC is saying, hey, we believe based on that metric, nobody else is going to be able to stack up against us. So now, yes, we are probably, I believe, as Heather mentioned earlier, going to have a lot more 3-loss teams. It's going to be very tough now, it seems, to keep more of these SEC teams out, no matter how deep we end up expanding the playoff, Heather.
Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti, though, told me at Big Ten Media Days that there's no magic formula or metric to help determine the difference for the selection committee between 3 4-loss Big Ten SEC teams and a 2 or a 1-loss team from other leagues. So I would caution people to assume that just because the SEC went to 9 games in part on the heels of this scheduling metric enhancement for the committee does not mean that the Big Ten is necessarily suddenly going to say, okay, a 16-team 5+11 model works for us. They are now turning their attention to a 24 or 28-team college football playoff with automatic qualifiers, and this could actually enhance their belief in those automatic qualifiers because the SEC is now going to lose more games. It's simply more difficult to finish undefeated or with 1 or 2 losses in that conference.
Yeah, Heather, that's a great point. And when I saw the news of this yesterday, I thought about that because, when I first heard 24, 28 teams in the playoff, it seemed like a long shot at first. I almost kind of chuckled at it. But now I'm like, if the SEC goes in 9 games, you're going to have a 7-2. You're going to have a 6-3 in-conference record. And those teams probably will get over or get into the playoff over a team from the ACC that might, be 6-2 in the ACC. So I think that's going to be the interesting part as far as propping up these teams, giving them more ammo as far as their schedules. And guys, let's be real. A lot of the teams are going to be ranked in the top 25 throughout the entire year. I know the AP top, preseason doesn't necessarily matter for college football playoff rankings, but once we get to week 7, week 8, most of those teams are still going to be in the conversation. And you can imagine if you're a team that's lost 1 or 2 conference games, you get that extra opportunity or 2 or 3 to play more conference opponents who are in the top 25, which helps your resume. So this is a smart decision, and I wouldn't be shocked if we see the ACC try to follow suit.
One thing that Heather really said that piqued my interest, because there were so many things that come off of this, the idea that you're playing 9 games, taking away your FCS opponent and adding a high-quality non-conference team and or Notre Dame. If I'm a coach, I'm worried about it, but at the same token, I know the schedule strength metrics are with me. It's a kind of a tricky balancing act because there's nowhere to run and hide anymore, even for a week.
Yeah, 100%. Look, as much as coaches will try to tell you, hey, we don't care who's on our schedule, we'll play whatever. The amount of production meetings, I'm sure EJ could speak to this as well, that I've stepped into, and you walk in there and sometimes it's like, hey, coach, who put together the schedule? And he's like, man, I was hoping you guys could tell us because this is not a good time. So that is a very real thing. And again, I think most coaches, you tell them, hey, play who's on your schedule, and they'll tell their team, hey, we're going to go out there, give it our all. But it is a very real thing that coaches, they take it 1 week at a time, but it's also sometimes hard not to look down the line and say, oh my goodness gracious, if you're the Florida Gators this season, you look at your schedule this year and you just look at that haul and hope that you stay healthy and all the little things go right just to give yourself a shot. So yes, I'm sure that while SEC coaches realize this is good for them for the long haul, there is a little bit of sweat on the forehead, all right, we really got to make every single week count.
Yeah, Harry, that's the point here because you think about the health of your team once you get into week 6, week 7, and if you have a left tackle that's out, but you don't really get that opportunity to give him that extra week where he maybe doesn't need to play because your team is more talented, and this just makes the schedule harder. But I will say this: if you sign up to play in the SEC, you got to put your big pants on anyways. I mean, you know what you're signing up for. So now you just add one more opponent here where you got to go to their house or they come to you. And I think coaches, again, when they look at their schedule, it's going to be vaunting. But once you get into the season and you say, man, we just lost last week, and let's say we lost by 1, they're going to be glad they get another top 25 potential matchup within the conference to go there and win at home or even win on the road. Again, this is all about building the best resume you can as we get toward the end of the season.
I would also just remind college football fans that this is for 2026, and that is when they're looking at possibly making changes to the playoff. And it is very possible that they don't change it. We keep talking about 16, 24 now, 28. It can stay at 12. Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti have both said to me there is a playoff format for 2026 and beyond. It looks exactly like it does now. If it's going to change, they have to agree to do that. And right now, I still don't believe that they're on the same page.
Heather, I just can't see a world where if you have 9 conference games in the SEC, coaches have to deal with that, and then you're telling us we're only going with still 12 teams, which really allows, maybe a max of 4 spots for the SEC. I feel like this is, again, a situation where we're going to go to 9 conference games, which the Big Ten has been calling for a while, so we appease them on that. Then I think expansion is certainly down the road. I hear what you're saying, but I think it's either going to be 16 or, for all accounts, it might end up being into the 20s. But I just can't see this thing staying at 12 now that the SEC is playing non-conference games. That would be crazy.
All right, we'll see.
I do believe that.
Go ahead, Heather.
I was just going to say, I do believe that CFP expansion is inevitable. I'm just wondering if they're going to be able to get it done in time by December 1st, which is when they set the deadline to make that decision for next year.
Yes, the 2025 December 1 date will tell us what's going to happen in 2026. So keep tabs on that.
You want this, you got that. No way, watch them walk right past you.